That was her. All right. Thank you all for coming today. It's been incredible hearing some of these stories. As you know, as we've heard, my dad was larger than life. He would fill a room with his voice and his presence. So he's not going to fit into all these eulogies. I'm not going to describe him to you because you know as well or better than I. So I'm going to tell you the things that I learned from him, some of the things that I inherited from him, aside from my good looks, of course. They say the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, and that is very true. It should surprise no one that I pursued a career in musical theater. And just like Sierra, I had those same elocution lessons when I was a kid. We were working on the poem To a Mouse by Robert Burns, and if anyone wants to hear it, I won't bore you with it now, but let me know and I can share it with you in the reception afterwards. I probably still remember every single word. And so whether it was nature or nurture to get those talents from him, he definitely nurtured the talents that I did have. We went over every single moment in that poem, and when your dad has a voice for radio, the biggest cardinal sin in the house is mumbling, especially when you consider how many bombs went off in his ears over his lifetime. He made sure that there was no mumbling allowed ever in our house. So I would be in these early performances cradling a toy mouse that I borrowed from my cat, and those early performances fed me my love of performing, holding an audience captive, and the love of stories. My entire life was captured on film, and I remember him teaching me the rules of photography with his photos, the importance of the rule of thirds, the importance of having lines in your photo, and most importantly, the importance of your photo to tell a story. The time when I felt closest to my dad was when we took a trip to Burma, because of course, we couldn't just go to the beach. We went to Burma. It was the year before my senior year of high school, and every day we would go out, we would take photos, he would take video, and we'd come back and we'd talk about what we'd share the photos we'd received. It was like we were pirates, sharing the booty that we had, amassed during the day. And there was one particular day, I don't even remember where we were, but we saw this huge statue of the Buddha, and at his feet was a man with a newspaper. And that image was just so striking to us. It was a man seeking earthly enlightenment under an image of heavenly enlightenment. So we looked at each other, we smiled, and we set about capturing this moment. So he got a bit further away. There was an arch near the Buddha, and so in his photo, he used a frame within a frame to have the arch frame the Buddha. There's beautiful lines in his image. The lines draw your eye from the Buddha down to the man. I chose a different approach. I went a lower angle, so my shot emphasizes the man. He is in the forefront with the Buddha looming above him. And that's what I love about photography, that two photographers can see the same image and still have different ways to approach it. It speaks to them in different ways. So that night, we came back to our hotel and shared our photos. He looked at both my photo and his next to each other. He smiled, and he looked at me and he said, "You got the shot." And to this day, that is one of the most proud moments of my life, that I had captured the story that he wanted to tell as well. So I've told you the skills that he taught me, photography, theater, public speaking. But the thing that I am most proud to have inherited from him was his love of adventure, his distaste for staying in one place for too long, and his love of stories. Stories can bring people together. They can make people feel things. They can end a war. He so believed in the importance of those stories that he dedicated his life to telling them. Stories that some people were too afraid to tell. Stories of conflict, the horrors of war, stories of people fighting to survive in intense conditions. My father knew that some stories needed to be told and risked his life to make sure that they were known. Our story was not always an easy one. As a journalist, he dealt in facts. And as you've seen, I inherited my heart from my mother. It was not always an easy conversation to have. We wear our hearts on our sleeves. And for those of you who have never come out to anyone, it is a terrifying but also life-affirming moment. And in my moment, my father presented me with a packet of research of reasons why men think they're gay, but they're really not. Of course, armed with facts. That's how we always approach life. So of course, it was the actions of a well-meaning father who truly loved his son and wanted to help him understand it. But as you can imagine, when you are revealing your truth, your story to someone like my father, it was not an easy moment for me. But I am grateful because we were able to reconcile. We were able to come together. And even though he may not have always understood me or understood my life choices, I never had any doubt how much he loved me. We may not have always seen eye to eye, like how in the later part of his life, he insisted on using a fisheye lens on everything. And the photographers in the room will know that that is not appropriate. You did not use a fisheye lens for a portrait, right? Right? Thank you. Okay, is this thing on? Hello? So for many years, I wondered how proud he was of me. But in the later years of his life, there was never any doubt in my mind how proud he was. And I just hope he knows how proud I was to be his son. The last skill I hope to have inherited from my father was his skill at giving eulogies. In the later part of his life, he unfortunately had to do many of them. And he had the incredible skill to combine anecdotes of a person's life with beautiful quotes he had found. And this is his quote book. It is full of funny jokes that he'd found, inspirational quotes. And his favorite is from a film called Blade Runner. And this is a quote that he often used in eulogies. This is the end of the film. A replicant is facing the end of his life, and this is his monologue. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shores of Orion. I've watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in the rain. Time to die. But my father's moments will not be lost to time. They will live on in the documentaries he produced, in the articles he wrote, and in the stories that we share with each other today. So now it's time for the student to become the master. I'm not going to rely on just his quotes. I'm going to add one of mine. So recently, my mother and I had the pleasure of watching the movie Big Fish. If you watched the movie, you'll recognize one of the characters. Edward Bloom shares a lot of resemblance to my father. He was larger than life. He was full of tall tales. He knew how to charm people. He was, of course, had a lovely wife. You can see the resemblance. Had a son that had difficulty relating to him because he couldn't see the man behind the stories. And there were so many moments in that movie that struck a chord with us. Final words by the bedside, the nostalgia of going through old papers, a crowd gathering to celebrate our life well lived. It was incredibly cathartic to see our story on the big screen, to know that we are not the first people who have gone through this, and we certainly will not be the last. But that's when I realized the power of stories. Sharing a story helps keep you from feeling alone. Sharing a story makes you feel connected to something bigger than yourself. And sharing a story helps you heal. So here is my addition to Dad's quote book. The man tells his stories so many times that he becomes his stories. They live on after him, and in doing so, he becomes immortal. So today, I don't want your condolences. I want your stories. no one is allowed to leave until I hear a story from each of you. All right? You promise? And it is in sharing those stories that we will help each other heal. And it is in those stories that Dad will live forever.